Alberto Coyote Ruz Buenfil, born September 11, 1945, died December 7, 2023, was a Mexican writer, social activist, and ecological pioneer known for blending art, community, and environmentalism in pursuit of social change. Over a career spanning 6 decades, he co-founded experimental theater troupes, established Mexico's first ecovillage, and led the legendary 13-year Rainbow Peace Caravan across Latin America to promote sustainable living and a culture of peace. He was a key figure in the Rainbow family and ecovillage movements, a champion for the rights of Mother Earth, and the author of several books chronicling the Ecotopian ideals he lived by. Alberto Ruz Buenfil was born into an illustrious family in Mexico City on September 11, 1945. His father, Alberto Ruz Lhuillier, was a renowned French-Mexican archaeologist celebrated for discovering the tomb of the Mayan ruler Pakal at Palenque in 1952, while his mother, Blanca Buenfil, came from Campeche. Alberto grew up in the Yucatan region with his brother Jorge, surrounded by a deep cultural and historical legacy that nurtured his fascination with indigenous wisdom and ancient civilizations. He studied at the Liceo Franco-Mexicano and later at Preparatoria 5 in Mexico City, receiving a bilingual and bicultural education that helped him become fluent in Spanish, French, English, Portuguese, and Italian. After completing secondary school, Ruz pursued higher education internationally, earning a degree in education from the Instituto Francés de América Latina, affiliated with the University of Paris. In the mid-1960s, he taught French language and culture at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, UNAM, and briefly served on its faculties of chemistry, economics, and political science. However, the social and cultural upheaval of the 1960s soon drew him away from a conventional academic path. Inspired by revolutionary ideas, he immersed himself in countercultural studies abroad. In 1970-71 he studied contemporary arts at an experimental Bauhaus Situationist community in Sweden. In 1971-72 he learned organic farming on a kibbutz in Israel. And in 1974-75 he studied comparative religion at the Theosophical Society's headquarters in India. These diverse experiences, spanning art, agriculture, and spirituality, gave him an eclectic skill set and a deeply global perspective. In 1968, at the age of 22, Alberto Ruz left behind mainstream Mexican society and set out on an odyssey through the global counterculture. Traveling with a small group of like-minded companions, he spent nearly 8 years as a nomad across North America, Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, and India. The group journeyed in old vehicles, living in communes, ashrams, and eco-communities, immersing themselves in the diverse alternative lifestyles they encountered. In the spirit of cultural exchange, they expressed gratitude to their hosts by offering theatrical performances, acts of art and storytelling that embodied Ruz's belief in sharing, creativity, and community as universal languages. This period shaped Ruz's identity as both an artist and an activist. While in the United States, he joined anti-Vietnam War demonstrations and connected with the revolutionary movements of the time, ranging from the Black Panthers to the emerging ecological thinkers inspired by Ernest Callenbach's Ecotopia. Embracing a tribal spirit, Ruz and his companions formed spontaneous theater groups that used performance as a means of expression and resistance. In India, he co-founded 2 international theater troupes, Los Hathi Babas and the Illuminated Elephants Traveling Gypsy Theater, which became platforms for social commentary and peace advocacy. The Illuminated Elephants later toured through the US, Guatemala, and Mexico in the early 1970s, using colorful street theater and circus arts to spread messages of peace, environmental awareness, and ecological responsibility. These formative experiences instilled in Ruz a lifelong conviction that art could be a powerful instrument for activism and transformation. During his wandering years, Ruz became involved with the Rainbow Family counterculture movement, participating in gatherings that celebrated peace, spirituality, and ecological living, most notably the 1979 Rainbow Gathering in Arizona. Immersed in this family of living light, he absorbed its ideals of unity, community, and reverence for nature, which profoundly shaped his worldview. He later captured these experiences in his 1989 book Rainbow Nation Without Borders, a reflection on the Rainbow family's vision of global harmony. It was during this time that he adopted the nickname Coyote, inspired by the indigenous trickster figure symbolizing wisdom through playfulness and transformation. Years later, in a blend of humor and homage to the Zapatista movement, he would affectionately refer to himself as Sub-Coyote Alberto. By the late 1970s, Ruz's traveling troupe had grown into a multi-family nomadic community. As children were born and the need for a stable home base grew, the wanderers began searching for a place to settle down in Mexico. In 1982, Alberto Ruz and about 20 adults, plus a dozen children, from his traveling tribe found an ideal haven in the mountains of Tepoztlán, in the state of Morelos. Ruz recalls being called to a particular enchanted spot, especially by the presence of a magnificent tree whose roots clung to the rocks. There, on a 5-acre plot of semi-arid land, they decided to build an intentional community grounded in the arts and ecological living. They named it Huehuecóyotl, after an Aztec deity. In Nahuatl, Huehuecóyotl means Old Coyote, fitting both the group's creative trickster spirit and Ruz's own totemic nickname. Huehuecóyotl is also the Aztec god of arts, music and ceremonial dance, an apt patron for an artist collective. The Huehuecóyotl ecovillage became the first of its kind in Mexico. Building the village was an experiment in sustainable living. The founders first cut a road into the remote site and constructed rainwater catchment systems to secure a water supply. As their children grew, the community built a small schoolhouse, with the parents themselves as teachers, offering an alternative education that soon attracted kids from the local town as well. Over time they developed various ecotechniques, for off-grid living, such as solar energy, composting toilets, organic gardening, and natural building, and began hosting workshops to teach these techniques. Ruz, mindful of legacy thanks to his archaeologist father, diligently documented the community's journey. He preserved diaries, photographs, and recordings from their travels and projects, which later informed their performances, conferences, and books. The community even published a monthly magazine with cutting-edge content on communal living, land rights, and ecotechnology, radical ideas in 1980s Mexico. Huehuecóyotl soon gained renown as a center for ecological culture and the arts. It functioned as a living learning community, hosting educational programs and cultural events year-round. Ruz and his partner co-founders, such as Swedish artist Jan van Bart, were sometimes dubbed Rainbow Pirates for their eclectic, free-spirited approach. The success of Huehuecóyotl established Ruz Buenfil as a pioneer of the eco-village movement and a mentor to sustainable communities throughout the Americas. The very name Coyote by which he became widely known was reinforced by this village he birthed, truly making him the Old Coyote of Tepoztlán. After over a decade rooted at Huehuecóyotl, the ever-restless Ruz felt the call of the open road once more. In 1996, at age 50, he launched an ambitious new odyssey he dubbed the Rainbow Peace Caravan, Caravana Arco Iris por la Paz. This project married Ruz's roaming theater troupe model with the ecological mission of Huehuecóyotl. Loading a retrofitted school bus, a gift from a friend in Colorado, with circus props, solar panels, and dreamers young and old, Ruz set out from Tepoztlán in June 1996, intent on journeying the length of the Americas, from Mexico to Tierra del Fuego, spreading messages of environmental awareness and peace. At departure, the caravan consisted of Ruz and about a dozen volunteers. Even a last-minute elder in a van joined the convoy. They barely had gas money to reach the next city, but Ruz was undaunted. As he later recounted, "When you arrive somewhere, you must offer something, not look for what you can take, but what you can give." Following that ethos, at each stop the Rainbow Caravan would stage a vibrant theatrical street performance to attract and thank the local community, and then offer hands-on workshops on sustainable living practices. The Rainbow Peace Caravan became a nomadic eco-school and cultural exchange on wheels. Over the next 13 years, it traveled through 17 countries in Mesoamerica and South America, from the troubled highlands of Chiapas to the Andes and Amazon, demonstrating by example how to live lightly on the earth. A typical caravan visit to a village or city began with music, clowning, and drama to engage people, followed by free trainings on ecotechniques for the local residents. Ruz and his team taught practical skills like installing solar panels and rainwater catchment, composting, planting gardens, and creating eco-schools, adapted to each locale's needs. They also convened circles for local environmentalists and indigenous groups to share knowledge and join forces. The caravan ventured everywhere: war zones, crowded favelas, remote indigenous villages, leaving a trail of inspiration. What Ruz thought might take 2 to 3 years ultimately stretched into 13 years on the road, as the caravan often lingered for months or even over a year in places that embraced them. Early in the journey, the caravan made a historic detour to Chiapas, Mexico. The Zapatista uprising had erupted there in 1994, and upon hearing of the caravan's mission, the Zapatistas invited Ruz's troop to visit their territory. In 1996 the Rainbow Caravan rolled into a Zapatista village, where the rebels had prepared a tent city for an international gathering of 6,000 leftist activists. Ruz, donning the moniker Subcoyote Alberto in solidarity, presented gifts of books and music to Subcomandante Marcos. The caravan then spent a month living alongside the Zapatista community, performing their theater, sharing appropriate tech workshops, and learning from the indigenous autonomous struggle. This exchange affirmed Ruz's belief in uniting social revolution with ecological consciousness. Decades later, Ruz reflected that it was from the Zapatistas that he truly learned to live the idea that the earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. From 1996 onward, the Rainbow Peace Caravan zigzagged south through Central and South America. It became an evolving community in its own right. Over 450 volunteers from around the world joined at various stages, as others settled down or moved on, yet Ruz himself remained through the entire odyssey. The caravan left a beautiful footprint wherever it passed, new local eco-projects sprouted, and cross-pollination occurred as some caravan members fell in love and stayed in communities along the route. The travelers also organized several large-scale international gatherings or rainbow encounters to unite kindred movements. In 2003, the caravan co-hosted the Call of the Condor gathering in Peru, near the foot of Machu Picchu, bringing together hundreds of eco-activists and indigenous leaders. A few years later, they helped stage another continental meeting in Alto Paraíso, Brazil, called the Second Great Hummingbird Call, Yamato del Colibri. Such events were the seeds of what became the Vision Council of Guardians of the Earth, Consejo de Visiones, a continuing series of transformational gatherings launched in 1990s Mexico, and CASA, Council of Sustainable Settlements of the Americas, the Latin American Ecovillage Network. Ruz is credited as an originator and guiding spirit behind the Vision Council Network since 1991, which has held annual Call of the _ gatherings, Condor, Eagle, Water, etc., across the Americas to this day. In 2005, 9 years after departure, the caravan finally reached Tierra del Fuego at the southern tip of Argentina, fulfilling Ruz's personal promise to carry the rainbow flag to the ends of the earth. Amidst Patagonia's glaciers, Ruz ceremonially raised the Rainbow Peace flag to symbolize the journey's accomplishment. But even then, the work was not done. The Brazilian Minister of Culture, famed musician Gilberto Gil, had been following the caravan's progress. Impressed by Ruz's book about the travels and the impact of the caravan, Gil extended an extraordinary invitation in 2006. He asked Ruz and his team to partner with Brazil's Culture Points program and bring the caravan's educational theater approach to communities throughout Brazil. For the first time, the Rainbow Caravan received government funding, used to repair vehicles, upgrade equipment, and even pay each member a small stipend, about 100 reals a month. With official support, the caravan spent about 4 more years touring Brazil, 2005 to 2009, visiting city after city to celebrate local traditions and sustainable practices. The final chapter of the caravan came in January 2009 at the World Social Forum in Belém do Pará, Brazil. Ruz felt this massive global gathering, 150,000 people convened at the mouth of the Amazon, was a fitting place to conclude the epic journey. The caravan crew assembled a 500-person circus tent at the forum, creating a peace village complete with solar-powered lights, costumes, kitchen and stages. They held talks, workshops and performances for the forum attendees, showcasing all they had learned. When the forum ended, Ruz gathered his tribe and declared that the Rainbow Peace Caravan's mission was complete. Hasta aquí llegamos, we stop here, he told them, though anyone was free to continue on their own. He donated one of their buses to a community and arranged for the other bus to be shipped back to Mexico. The latter bus, nicknamed Mazorca, still sits outside his home. In 13 years on the road, the Rainbow Peace Caravan had engaged hundreds of communities in over 17 countries, with Ruz Buenfil the only person to travel the entire route from start to finish. I did it all as a service to Mother Earth, as a volunteer for humanity, Ruz reflected later. The profound lesson he carried home was that indigenous philosophies like the Andean concept of sumak kazi, good living, living in harmony and reciprocity with Mother Earth, must be woven into our modern world, even into law. Throughout the caravan years, Alberto Ruz was simultaneously helping knit together a continental network of eco-communities. Building on gatherings like those organized by the caravan, he became a founding figure of the Vision Council, Guardians of the Earth in Latin America, Consejo de Visiones, around 1990. These Vision Council events, often held in natural settings, brought together activists, artists, healers, indigenous elders, and young idealists for week-long conferences on environmental and social issues. Ruz's charismatic leadership earned him a role as an elder statesman of the Intentional Communities movement. He went on to serve in the Global Ecovillage Network, GEN, as an advisor in the early 2000s, and he helped found CASA, Council of Sustainable Settlements of the Americas, as GEN's Latin American chapter. Under the umbrella of CASA, dozens of eco-villages, permaculture centers, and transition towns across the Americas became connected, sharing resources and strategies. Ruz also co-created Mexico's first network of environmental groups, Arco-Redes, and a multimedia documentation center called Producciones Arcoíris to archive and share the lessons from these projects. In recognition of his innovative work, Ruz received several honors. He was awarded an Ashoka Fellowship, 2002 to 2005, providing support for his social entrepreneurship. And in 2004 the Rainbow Peace Caravan, under Ruz's guidance, won Brazil's National Escola Viva Prize as one of the country's 60 most advanced education projects, an award personally bestowed by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Minister Gilberto Gil. Such accolades underscored Ruz's role as a bridge between grassroots movements and institutional recognition. After returning to Mexico in 2009, Ruz Buenfil shifted from nomadic life to applying his experience in mainstream institutions, without compromising his vision. Upon his homecoming, Mexican author and politician Laura Esquivel invited him to work in Coyoacán, a borough of Mexico City, at the Casa de Cultura Jesus Reyes Arolas. There, Ruz launched the Eco Barrios project, Eco Neighborhoods, to bring eco-village principles into urban poor neighborhoods. For 3 years, 2010 to 2012, he led a team from the back of his trusty school bus, touring 10 marginalized barrios in southern Mexico City. In each neighborhood, they implemented a 40-lesson training program on eco-techniques, from building with adobe and harvesting rainwater to starting community gardens and teaching recycling in local schools. Ruz's troupe would arrive and first put on their hallmark theatrical show, instantly winning the hearts of local children and diffusing tension even in gang-controlled slums. Gaining the community's trust, and even protection from local gang leaders via the kids' admiration, they then trained residents in hands-on sustainability skills. He would often cap these trainings by bringing participants out to Huehuecóyotl for a weekend immersion in communal eco-living, an eye-opening experience for city dwellers who, in some cases, had never gone a week without witnessing violence. The Eco Barrios initiative was pioneering in showing that eco-village concepts could take root in inner-city settings, and to this day Coyoacán has more urban farms than any other Mexico City borough, a legacy of Ruz's project. In 2013, the governor of Morelos, the state containing Huehuecóyotl, invited Ruz to serve as Director of Environmental Culture for the state government. Taking the role, Ruz tried to do things as I've always done, deploying the caravan bus and staging public eco-cultural events across the state. He organized celebrations for Earth Day, Water Day, and anti-mining activism, even installing a model eco-house with solar panels, rainwater systems, and a permaculture garden in Cuernavaca's Central Park as an educational exhibit. However, Ruz's unconventional approach clashed with bureaucratic politics. After about a year, facing resistance from superiors who preferred him to sit in the office 8 to 5, he resigned. Nonetheless, he counted it a success that he had demonstrated new possibilities, replacing official holidays with environmental days and showing how a government could promote sustainable living. Freed from institutional constraints, Ruz returned to his beloved Huehuecóyotl around 2015 and focused on a more global advocacy inspired by his experiences. Having witnessed the sacred relationship with Pachamama, Mother Earth, among Andean Aymara and Quechua communities during his travels, Ruz became a leading voice in the emerging movement for the rights of Mother Earth. He was galvanized by news that Bolivia's President Evo Morales had introduced a universal declaration of the rights of Mother Earth at the United Nations in 2009. Ruz decided, that's what I want to work on from now on. From 2015 onward, Coyote Alberto dedicated himself to pushing the frontier of environmental law and consciousness. In 2016 he organized the first global forum for the rights of Mother Earth in Mexico City, a groundbreaking international conference, June 1 to 5, 2016, featuring luminaries like theologian Leonardo Boff and eco-feminist Vandana Shiva as keynotes. The forum culminated in a 14-hour Pachamama festival in a Mexico City park with 120 organizations and over 10,000 people celebrating sustainable living alternatives. During this event, Ruz was honored with the Kazani Communitarian Award by the Fellowship for Intentional Community, recognizing his lifetime of work promoting cooperative, sustainable living. The momentum continued as Ruz helped draft and present a proposed law of Mother Earth for Mexico City's new constitution in mid-2016, bringing the concept of Earth as a legal subject into the country's legislative discourse. Internationally, Ruz became an itinerant Earth elder figure. He spent summers touring Europe, for example, visiting 25 Italian cities in one summer, giving public talks, holding indigenous-style Temescal sweat lodge ceremonies, and formally presenting local mayors with copies of the Universal Declaration of Mother Earth Rights and a Rainbow Peace flag for their municipalities. He carried the rights of nature message to forums in Switzerland, Spain, and beyond. Ruz was also featured as the keynote speaker in the 2016 Italian documentary Pachamama, a manifesto for the Earth, further spreading this philosophy through film. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit in 2020, Ruz shifted much of his teaching and organizing online. Even in his mid-70s, he embraced digital platforms to continue advocating for legal rights for nature and to share memoirs from his adventurous life. Remarkably, around 2019 Ruz had been diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer and given only a few months to live. Defying that prognosis, he spent his final 4 years as prolific as ever, completing or contributing to 4 books, delivering virtual presentations around the world, and co-organizing new Vision Council gatherings, such as the Call of Water in Bacalar, 2017, and the Embrace of the Amate in Tepoztlán, 2022. His undiminished vigor in the face of illness inspired all who knew him. Alberto Ruz Buenfil's life was guided by an expansive philosophy that blended activism, spirituality, and joy. He often said he chose not to live a normal life, and not to live just one life. Instead, he lived many lives in one, reinventing himself as teacher, actor, community builder, caravan pilgrim, governmental changemaker, and elder guide. He believed in the power of movement. Movement opens the mind, the heart, your whole vision of the world, he said, and thus he never stopped traveling and learning. A core tenet of his outlook was the idea of service to Mother Earth, that humanity must see itself as part of nature's community, owing respect and care to the earth as a living being. Long before terms like climate justice or regenerative culture were popular, Ruz was exemplifying them by linking social justice, land rights for indigenous peoples, anti-war and anti-capitalist critiques, with ecological regeneration and cultural renewal. Ruz Buenfil was also a master storyteller and networker. He wove together threads from disparate movements, the hippie rainbow family, the Zapatista revolutionaries, the ecovillage designers, and indigenous spiritual guardians, into a single tapestry working toward what he called a new, more beautiful world. Colleagues describe his infectious rainbow heart and ability to make each person feel important to the greater mission. He was equally at home holding a shamanic ceremony under the stars as he was speaking at the United Nations or a university. Often appearing in a brightly colored beret, El Coyote embodied the archetype of the sacred clown, using humor, art, and surprise to provoke change. He frequently cited Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote, "If I knew the world would end tomorrow, I would still plant a tree today," as a mantra of active hope. Alberto Ruz's legacy is immense and still unfolding. Many organizations and projects exist because of the sparks he ignited during the Caravan and Vision Council years. The eco-techniques first practiced at Huehuecóyotl are now taught in universities in Mexico. The annual Vision Council gatherings continue to convene hundreds of eco-conscious activists across Latin America. Even urban agriculture in Coyoacán flourishes thanks to his eco-barrio seeds. Globally, he is remembered as a historiographer of the future, a keeper of wisdom from past movements who devoted it to building a better future. Alberto Ruz Buenfil documented his journey through numerous writings and creative works. He authored or co-authored several influential books reflecting the evolution of the alternative movements. His early works, Arcobaleno, Popolo Senza Confini, Italy, 1988, and Rainbow Nation Without Borders, toured in Ecotopian Millennium, USA, 1989, compiled testimonies from post-World War II counterculture and envisioned a global rainbow nation of peace. In Mexico, he published Guerreros del Arcoiris, Rainbow Warriors, 1991, and later La Leyenda del Cuarto Mago, The Legend of the Fourth Magician, Colombia, 2001, a mystical allegory. His travel diary from the caravan years was released as Hey Tantos Caminos, So Many Roads, 2004, compiling communiques, chronicles and reflections from 1996 to 2002. In 2012, Ruz co-edited Huehuecóyotl, Raíces al Viento, telling the 30-year story of his home ecovillage. These publications not only narrate his experiences but serve as manuals for social change, blending storytelling with practical lessons. Ruz was also a prolific communicator beyond books. He edited and contributed to alternative magazines such as El Viejo Coyote, Arcoiris, and Voces de Huehuecóyotl throughout the 1980s and 90s, spreading ideas on intentional community and earth stewardship. In film and media, he made memorable appearances. Ruz played a Mexican anarchist character in the Brazilian feature film Cocor, 2005, and appeared in the homage film Dreaming with Tulum, Mexico, 2011, about filmmaker Federico Fellini. He was the keynote narrator of the 2016 documentary Pachamama, Manifesto for the Earth, articulating the case for Earth's legal rights. As a sought-after public speaker, Ruz delivered keynote speeches at international conferences, university lectures, and grassroots festivals on 5 continents. Into his late 70s, he continued writing articles, in both Spanish and English, for outlets like the Esperanza Project, sharing reflections on ecology, indigenous wisdom, and the ongoing struggles for a just world. Alberto Ruz Buenfil died on December 7, 2023 at the age of 78, after a 4-year battle with cancer. Fittingly, he spent his final days in the mountains of Tepoztlán, cared for by family in the eco-community he loved. His passing was peaceful, and news of it triggered an outpouring of tributes across social networks around the world. For days and nights, messages flowed in from Italy, Colombia, Brazil, Spain, Chile and beyond, a rainbow of response from the global family he helped build. Friends and admirers remembered Coyote Alberto as a visionary abuelo, grandfather, whose penetrating blue gaze and ever-warm heart had inspired thousands to take up the work of weaving a new, more beautiful world. Today, Alberto Ruz Buenfil is celebrated as a legend for all times, a pioneer who proved that another way of living is possible. His life story, from discovering intentional communities as a young subversive, to creating a thriving eco-village, to traversing a continent in a psychedelic bus, to lobbying for the rights of Mother Earth at the halls of power, serves as an enduring beacon for activists, environmentalists, and dreamers. In eulogizing Ruz, colleagues noted that he made each person feel special and necessary to the cause, and that he carried the many threads of the global movement, weaving them into a cohesive tapestry. The seeds Alberto Coyote Ruz planted continue to grow in community gardens, eco-villages, laws recognizing nature's rights, and the very hearts of people committed to a sustainable and equitable future. As he often urged others, vive tus sueños, live your dreams, Alberto did exactly that, leaving a legacy as vibrant and enduring as the rainbow banner he carried. The acknowledgements and dedication, foreword by Starhawk, and prologue of Rainbow Nation Without Borders together set the visionary, communal, and spiritual tone of the book. Alberto Ruz Buenfil begins by honoring the people, ancestors, and earth forces that nurtured his life's work, dedicating his journey to those who strive for planetary unity and ecological harmony. In the foreword, Starhawk situates Ruz's mission within the broader movement of global awakening, recognizing him as a bridge between activism, spirituality, and ecological consciousness, someone embodying the living spirit of the rainbow. The prologue then invites readers into a collective dream of transformation, weaving myth, personal story, and prophecy to announce the coming of a tribe without borders, a rainbow nation devoted to peace, sustainability, and the rebirth of human connection with the earth. In the chapter The Rainbow, a Universal Archetype, Alberto Ruz Buenfil explores the rainbow as a timeless symbol of unity, transformation, and harmony found in cultures around the world. He traces its roots through African, Asian, Native American, and European mythologies, showing how it connects heaven and earth, spirit and matter. Ruz links ancient understandings of the rainbow with modern science, psychology, and energy studies, describing it as both a physical and spiritual spectrum that reflects the full range of human emotion, consciousness, and vitality. He discusses the aura, chromotherapy, and the interplay of color, sound, and perception as expressions of a deeper rainbow consciousness. Ultimately, the chapter presents the rainbow as a metaphor for humanity's awakening to its interconnectedness with all life and for the emergence of a holistic, ecological worldview that bridges science, art, and spirituality. Roots of the Rainbow in Africa and Australia explores the earliest mythic origins of the rainbow as a sacred symbol linking humanity, nature, and the divine. In African traditions, the rainbow often appears as a serpent or celestial bridge connecting the world of humans with that of spirits, embodying both creation and destruction, fertility and transformation. Similarly, in Aboriginal Australian cosmology, the rainbow serpent is a powerful ancestral being who shaped the land, carved rivers and mountains, and brought life-giving water to the earth, yet also demands respect for the natural balance. Through these ancient stories, Ruz reveals how the rainbow symbolizes the unity of opposites, water and fire, sky and earth, and how early peoples understood it as the pulse of life itself, a cosmic reminder of harmony between humans and the living planet. Roots of the Rainbow in Asia traces how Asian cultures interpreted the rainbow as a divine messenger and bridge between heaven and earth. In India, it is linked to Indra's bow, a celestial weapon symbolizing both power and protection, while in Tibet and China, it represents spiritual ascent, enlightenment, and the union of opposites, yin and yang, light and shadow. Buddhist and Taoist traditions see the rainbow as the final stage of spiritual realization, when the body dissolves into pure light, the rainbow body. Across these Asian myths and philosophies, Ruz shows the rainbow as a universal path of transformation, where color and light reflect the harmony of cosmic order and the potential for human awakening into unity with the greater whole. The Rainbow in Native America explores how indigenous peoples across the Americas view the rainbow as a sacred bridge between worlds and a sign of renewal and harmony. Among the Navajo, it serves as a protective guardian and pathway for the holy people. For the Hopi and other tribes, it symbolizes the covenant between humanity and nature, promising balance after storms of destruction. Ruz highlights the prophecy of the warriors of the rainbow, which foretells the rise of people from all races who will restore peace and ecological balance to the earth. Through these traditions, the rainbow embodies unity, respect for the elements, and the interconnectedness of all beings, reflecting the Native American vision of living in harmony with Mother Earth and the cycles of creation. European Roots of the Rainbow examines how the rainbow has long inspired European myths, philosophy, and science as a symbol of divine communication and human understanding. In Greek mythology, the goddess Iris carried messages between gods and mortals along a bridge of colored light, while in Norse legend, Bifrost linked Midgard and Asgard as a pathway between the earthly and celestial realms. Medieval alchemists saw the rainbow spectrum as the key to spiritual transformation and the union of opposites, a reflection of the quest for enlightenment. Later, scientific pioneers like Newton revealed its physical nature through light and prism, bridging mysticism and reason. Across these traditions, the rainbow expresses Europe's evolving vision of unity between heaven and earth, the spiritual and material, an emblem of humanity's enduring search for harmony within diversity. The rainbow in science and philosophy traces humanity's evolving understanding of the rainbow from mythic wonder to scientific revelation, while preserving its symbolic depth. Philosophers and scientists, from Aristotle to Newton, sought to decode its mystery, discovering that light refracts and reflects through water to reveal a hidden spectrum of color. This physical insight paralleled philosophical ideas of unity within diversity and the harmony of natural laws. Mystics and thinkers alike came to see the rainbow as both a material phenomenon and a metaphor for consciousness itself, a bridge between perception and reality, spirit and matter. Ultimately, the rainbow becomes a universal key to understanding how light, energy, and human awareness are intertwined within the same cosmic pattern of order and beauty. Energy, the rainbow, and the aura explores the connection between the rainbow's spectrum of colors and the subtle energies that animate all living beings. It describes how ancient and modern traditions alike recognize a luminous field, known variously as the aura, prana, or life force, that radiates around people, plants, and even objects. Scientific pioneers such as Wilhelm Reich and Semyon Kirlian sought to measure or photograph this energy, confirming that shifts in color and brightness reflect emotional and physical states. Each hue of the rainbow corresponds to qualities within the human psyche: violet for spirituality, blue for inspiration, green for vitality, red for passion, and so on, forming a complete energetic map of the self. Through this synthesis of science and mysticism, the rainbow emerges as a mirror of human consciousness, revealing the vibrational harmony that links body, mind, and spirit within the living universe. Color, sound, and perception reveals the deep resonance between light and sound as parallel expressions of the same vibrational energy. Both share frequency and rhythm, creating a natural bridge between what the eyes see and the ears hear. Throughout history, artists, mystics, and scientists have explored these correspondences, linking musical notes to colors, emotions, and states of consciousness. Composers like Beethoven and Rimsky-Korsakov associated tonal harmonies with hues, while modern psychology and chromotherapy use these relationships for healing and balance. The psychedelic culture of the 1960s further expanded this fusion through visual music and sensory experiments that blurred the lines between seeing and hearing. Ultimately, this interplay of color and sound points toward a new human awareness, a rainbow consciousness that perceives the universe as a living symphony of light, vibration, and interconnected energy. The rainbow in the psyche explores how human consciousness perceives and interacts with the rainbow's full spectrum of energy and meaning. It describes how the use of psychedelic and psychotropic substances in the mid-20th century opened new dimensions of awareness, allowing people to see colors, auras, and patterns of energy that revealed the unity of life. Such experiences, according to thinkers like Albert Hofmann, can dissolve the boundaries between self and environment, awakening an ecological consciousness rooted in empathy and connection. The rainbow thus becomes an inner map of the psyche, a reflection of the mind's emotional and spiritual states, where each color corresponds to different aspects of human feeling and perception. Ultimately, this union of inner and outer vision symbolizes a shift toward a holistic awareness of life as a single, interwoven spectrum of light, spirit, and existence. The New Rainbow movement describes the rise of a global network of people inspired by the rainbow as a symbol of unity, peace, and ecological renewal. Emerging from the countercultural revolutions of the 1960s and 1970s, this movement brought together activists, artists, and spiritual seekers who envisioned a world beyond borders, one grounded in community, simplicity, and reverence for the earth. It highlights the formation of gatherings and intentional communities where people practice sustainable living, shared resources, and celebrated diversity as strength. Rooted in indigenous wisdom and modern ecological thought, the New Rainbow movement embodies a planetary consciousness that seeks to heal the rift between humanity and nature. It calls for collective transformation through love, creativity, and cooperation, inviting all who hear the rainbow call to become part of a living prophecy, the birth of a global tribe dedicated to peace and the regeneration of the earth. Return of the Rainbow Warriors. The chapter brings to life the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy shared by many indigenous traditions, that a time would come when people of all colors, nations, and beliefs would unite to heal the earth. It recounts how this vision began manifesting through the countercultural and ecological movements of the late 20th century, as communities around the world gathered in harmony with nature to celebrate peace and diversity. These Rainbow Warriors are not soldiers but caretakers of the planet, guided by love, cooperation, and spiritual awareness rather than power or conquest. The chapter portrays their mission as both ecological and mystical, to restore balance between humanity and the earth, to revive sacred values lost in modern civilization, and to weave together the wisdom of ancestral cultures with the creativity of a new generation. Ultimately, it calls on readers to recognize themselves as part of this global tribe, messengers of a new era of planetary unity and renewal. The task of the Warriors of the Rainbow defines the sacred mission of those called to heal the earth and awaken human consciousness. These warriors, drawn from all cultures and walks of life, are not fighters in the traditional sense but peacemakers, artists, educators, and guardians of life who act through compassion and example. Their task is to mend the broken relationship between humanity and nature, reviving respect for the elements, protecting sacred lands, and living sustainably in harmony with the planet. They must also transform inner consciousness, replacing fear, greed, and division with love, service, and unity. Guided by ancient prophecies and modern ecological wisdom, the Warriors of the Rainbow are asked to embody a new paradigm, one that honors all beings as part of a single, luminous web of existence and carries the promise of a healed and balanced world. The Rainbow People envisions a diverse global community united by a shared commitment to peace, ecological balance, and spiritual awakening. These people transcend nationalities, religions, and social divisions, embodying the living symbol of the rainbow through their diversity and harmony. They gather in intentional communities, festivals, and movements dedicated to cooperation, creativity, and reverence for the earth, living simply and sustainably while celebrating the sacredness of life. Their culture blends ancient indigenous wisdom with new ecological and artistic expressions, showing that unity does not require uniformity. The Rainbow People represent humanity's evolutionary leap toward planetary consciousness, a tribe without borders who live as one family under the same sky, honoring love, freedom, and the renewal of the human spirit. Toward a New Tribalism, 1930 to 1970, the chapter traces the roots of the modern communal and ecological movements that emerged from the cultural revolutions of the mid-20th century. Beginning with early social experiments in the 1930s and 1940s and blossoming through the counterculture of the 1960s, it follows how disillusionment with industrial society, war, and consumerism led people to seek alternative ways of living. Artists, activists, and visionaries began forming intentional communities, communes, and tribes based on cooperation, self-sufficiency, and spiritual exploration. Influenced by peace movements, psychedelic culture, and a rediscovery of indigenous wisdom, these groups wove art, ecology, and collective consciousness into new forms of social organization. The chapter presents this new tribalism as a rebirth of humanity's ancient communal spirit, an evolutionary step toward reconnection with the earth, the sacred, and one another, laying the groundwork for the global rainbow movement that would follow. The post-war Beat generation explores how a new wave of writers, artists, and seekers in the 1950s rebelled against the conformity and materialism of post-war America, paving the way for later countercultural movements. Figures like Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and William S. Burroughs rejected conventional values, embracing spontaneity, freedom, spiritual exploration, and the search for authentic experience. Drawing inspiration from jazz, Eastern philosophy, and the open road, the Beats became cultural nomads who challenged political repression and social hypocrisy through poetry, art, and radical living. Their quest for transcendence through creativity, love, and expanded consciousness made them spiritual predecessors of the hippies and the rainbow tribes to come. In their rejection of alienation and embrace of direct experience, the Beats rekindled the flame of tribal connection and personal liberation that would ignite the broader movement toward ecological and cultural awakening. The tribal vision of Gary Snyder highlights the poet's profound influence on the ecological and countercultural consciousness of the mid-20th century. Gary Snyder envisioned a return to tribal values rooted in harmony with nature, simplicity, and spiritual awareness. Drawing from his studies of Zen Buddhism, Native American traditions, and anthropological insights, he proposed that modern humanity must reawaken its primal connection to the earth and live as part of the biotic community rather than above it. His poetry and essays celebrated wildness, community, and the sacredness of daily life, offering a model of ecological wisdom and personal freedom. Snyder's tribal vision became a guiding light for those seeking to create intentional, sustainable communities, calling for a cultural renewal where art, ecology, and spirituality merge into a single path of living in balance with the planet. The Living Theater tribe describes how the avant-garde performance group The Living Theater, led by Julian Beck and Judith Molina, transformed theater into a revolutionary act of collective awakening. Rejecting traditional boundaries between art and life, they created performances that broke the fourth wall, inviting audiences into direct emotional and spiritual participation. Emerging from the social unrest of the 1950s and 1960s, the troupe became a nomadic tribe dedicated to peace, nonviolence, and communal living, performing in streets, prisons, and public spaces around the world. Their productions, like Paradise Now, merged art, politics, and mysticism to challenge oppression and inspire liberation through love and consciousness. By embodying freedom and community both on and off the stage, the Living Theater became a living experiment in the new tribalism, demonstrating how creativity and collective action could become tools for social and spiritual transformation. The Merry Pranksters recounts how writer Ken Kesey and his band of free-spirited companions became cultural pioneers of the 1960s counterculture through their wildly creative experiment in communal living and consciousness expansion. Traveling across America in their brightly painted bus further, they staged spontaneous happenings filled with music, art, and LSD-fueled exploration, blending play, chaos, and enlightenment into a living performance. The pranksters rejected conformity and authority, seeing life itself as art and freedom as a shared adventure. Their experiments with psychedelics, technology, and collective creativity inspired a generation to break social taboos and question the limits of perception and control. Though often dismissed as anarchic or absurd, the Merry Pranksters embodied the birth of a new cultural vision, one that fused humor, mysticism, and rebellion into a colorful blueprint for personal and social liberation that deeply influenced the emerging rainbow and communal movements. The Hog Farmers and Their Friends tells the story of Hugh Romney, better known as Wavy Gravy, and his band of countercultural activists who turned communal living, service, and humor into a form of social revolution. Emerging from the 1960s peace and music movements, the Hog Farm Collective became famous for its compassionate chaos at events like Woodstock, where they provided food, security, and care under the motto Please Force. Traveling in psychedelic buses across America and later to Europe and Asia, they spread messages of ecological awareness, nonviolence, and creative cooperation. Their projects, such as the People's Parks and Earth People initiatives, aim to reclaim land for community use and teach ecological living. Blending clowning, activism, and spirituality, the Hog Farmers embodied the joyful, service-oriented spirit of the new tribalism, showing that laughter, love, and shared responsibility could be powerful tools for transforming both society and consciousness. The Diggers and Motherfuckers explores two radical collectives from San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury scene who turned social rebellion into acts of communal creativity and liberation. The Diggers, rooted in street theater and anarchist philosophy, sought to free people from the grip of consumerism by offering free stores, communal meals, and spontaneous performances that reimagined daily life as art. Their aim was to dissolve the boundaries between politics, art, and survival, creating a living model of a gift economy. The Motherfuckers, a more confrontational offshoot from New York, mixed anarchism with activism, challenging authority through provocative actions that blurred protest and performance. Together, these groups embodied the raw energy of the 1960s counterculture, rejecting hierarchy and capitalism, celebrating freedom and collective action, and laying the cultural groundwork for the ecological, artistic, and communal movements that would later blossom into the global rainbow vision. Woodstock Nation portrays the 1969 Woodstock Music and Art Fair as a defining moment of collective awakening for an entire generation. What began as a music festival transformed into a spontaneous experiment in peace, cooperation, and shared consciousness, uniting hundreds of thousands of people in a vision of love and freedom. Despite rain, mud, and chaos, the event unfolded as a living example of harmony without hierarchy, a temporary tribe where generosity, music, and art replaced fear and control. Woodstock symbolized the emergence of a new cultural identity that transcended politics and nationalism, celebrating unity with nature and one another. It revealed the possibility of a global community bound not by ideology but by joy, creativity, and compassion, an early manifestation of the Rainbow Nation to come, where peace and the sacredness of life formed the foundation of human coexistence. The birth of the Rainbow Tribes, 1970 to 1980. The chapter traces how the ideals of the 1960s counterculture matured into a global network of intentional communities and spiritual ecological movements. After the turbulence of protests and urban activism, many seekers turned toward the land, founding communes and ecovillages dedicated to cooperation, self-sufficiency, and harmony with nature. These rainbow tribes blended the insights of the hippie movement, indigenous wisdom, and Eastern spirituality into a new form of tribal living that emphasized shared resources, art, ceremony, and environmental responsibility. Traveling caravans and international gatherings linked these communities into a living web of cultural exchange, out of which the rainbow gatherings emerged as sacred spaces of peace and unity. The chapter captures this era as the rebirth of the human tribe, a return to the earth and to one another, where the dream of a borderless, compassionate, and sustainable world began to take tangible form. The Rainbow Gatherings describes the emergence of large, nomadic gatherings that became the living heart of the Rainbow movement, a modern expression of ancient tribal unity. Beginning in the early 1970s, thousands of people from around the world came together in remote natural settings to share food, music, prayer, and community without money, hierarchy, or formal leadership. These gatherings were grounded in the principles of peace, nonviolence, and ecological respect, honoring indigenous wisdom and the sacredness of the earth. Through shared rituals, councils, and collective decision-making, participants created a temporary village based on trust, cooperation, and love. The Rainbow Gatherings became a living prophecy of the tribe of many colors, demonstrating that humanity could live together in harmony and equality, even if only for a time, an open invitation to remember what it means to be one people under the same sky. Greenpeace International recounts how a small band of activists evolved into one of the world's most influential environmental movements, embodying the spirit of the Rainbow Warriors in direct action for the planet. Emerging in the early 1970s from anti-war and ecological roots in Canada and the Pacific Northwest, Greenpeace combined courage, nonviolence, and media-savvy creativity to confront whaling ships, nuclear testing, and industrial pollution. Their iconic voyages and daring protests captured global attention, proving that peaceful resistance could expose environmental crimes and inspire collective responsibility. Operating as a planetary tribe, Greenpeace transcended national boundaries, uniting people across cultures for the defense of life on Earth. The organization's mix of activism, ecological awareness, and moral conviction reflected the maturing vision of the Rainbow movement, transforming spiritual ideals into concrete global action for peace and environmental justice. For Christiania with Love celebrates the Free City of Christiania in Copenhagen as a living experiment in freedom, creativity, and communal living that embodied the ideals of the Rainbow movement. Founded in the early 1970s by artists, dreamers, and activists who reclaimed an abandoned military base, Christiania became a self-governing community rooted in cooperation, nonviolence, and ecological awareness. Its residents built homes, gardens, and workshops from recycled materials, developed alternative energy systems, and fostered a vibrant culture of art, theater, and music. Despite political pressure and social challenges, Christiania thrived as a beacon of autonomy and sustainability, a city within a city proving that another way of life was possible. The section portrays Christiania as a microcosm of the global rainbow vision, a place where love, creativity, and collective responsibility redefine what it means to live in harmony with each other and with the earth. Pilgrimage to Huehuecóyotl recounts the journey of a traveling tribe of artists, environmentalists, and visionaries who, after years of nomadic exploration, settled in the mountains of Tepoztlán, Mexico, to create the country's first ecovillage. Named after the Aztec trickster god Old Coyote, Huehuecóyotl became a living experiment in sustainability, community, and cultural fusion, blending indigenous traditions, permaculture, and the countercultural ideals of the Rainbow movement. The settlement served as a sanctuary for ecological education, performance art, and global networking, linking local wisdom with international activism. Through collective effort and spiritual intention, the group transformed arid land into fertile ground, symbolizing humanity's potential to live in balance with nature. The section presents Huehuecóyotl as both a physical home and a spiritual pilgrimage, an embodiment of the dream of a borderless tribe living in harmony with the earth and each other. The Rainbow Communities in Spain describes how the ideals of the Rainbow movement took root across the Iberian Peninsula during the late 1970s and 1980s, giving rise to vibrant eco-villages and intentional communities. Inspired by earlier rainbow gatherings and the broader countercultural awakening in Europe, groups of artists, activists, and seekers established communal projects that blended ecological living, spiritual practice, and cultural exchange. These communities, scattered across mountains and rural valleys, became sanctuaries for experimentation in permaculture, alternative energy, and cooperative governance, often in collaboration with local villagers. They also served as meeting points for international caravans and gatherings that connected Europe's ecological movements into a broader network. Through song, ritual, and shared labor, the Spanish Rainbow Communities embodied the essence of the tribe without borders, demonstrating how the vision of unity, simplicity, and love for the earth could flourish within everyday life. Shining Spectre of the 80s, the chapter chronicles how the Rainbow movement evolved during a decade of consolidation and expansion across Europe and the Americas. As the spirit of the 1960s matured, the gatherings and communities of the 1980s focused on deepening cooperation, ecological awareness, and spiritual practice amidst growing social and political challenges. Despite obstacles, such as police repression, harsh conditions, and cultural misunderstandings, the Rainbow tribes persisted, organizing gatherings in the Pyrenees, Asturias, and beyond that united people of diverse languages and traditions in shared purpose. These events strengthened the network of eco-communities and global peace activists, blending music, ritual, and collective action into a living model of harmony. The chapter portrays the 1980s as a period of resilience and reflection, when the tribe without borders proved its endurance by transforming adversity into unity and continuing to radiate a vision of planetary peace and ecological renewal. Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition highlights how the American civil rights leader reinterpreted the rainbow as a powerful symbol of social justice and unity within a political context. Building on the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., Jesse Jackson's Rainbow/Push Coalition sought to unite marginalized groups, African Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, workers, women, and the poor, into a single movement for equality, peace, and human dignity. His call for a rainbow of people echoed the global rainbow vision, linking spiritual ideals of harmony with concrete struggles for civil rights and economic fairness. The movement's inclusive message transcended race and class, asserting that diversity was a source of strength rather than division. Through Jackson's leadership, the rainbow became not only a metaphor for ecological and spiritual awakening but also a banner of political empowerment and hope for a more just and compassionate world. The Rainbow Networks in Mexico describes how the ideals of the global rainbow movement blossomed into a vibrant network of ecological, cultural, and spiritual communities throughout Mexico. Emerging in the late 1970s and 1980s, these networks linked artists, activists, indigenous leaders, and environmental educators who shared a vision of planetary peace and sustainable living. Inspired by the rainbow gatherings and the creation of the Huehuecóyotl ecovillage, Mexican groups organized festivals, caravans, and workshops that combined art, ritual, and ecological practice. They became bridges between urban and rural worlds, and between ancient indigenous traditions and contemporary global activism. Through collaboration and cultural fusion, the Rainbow Networks in Mexico embodied the tribe without borders ideal, transforming ecological awareness into action and weaving together communities committed to harmony, creativity, and the defense of Mother Earth. The Rainbow Gatherings in Europe recounts how the rainbow movement flourished across the continent during the 1980s, bringing together thousands of people from diverse cultures to live communally in harmony with nature. These gatherings, held in forests, valleys, and mountain meadows, became spaces of spiritual renewal and cultural exchange, uniting Europeans seeking peace, ecological balance, and freedom from materialism. Despite challenges such as harsh weather and police interference, the gatherings nurtured a deep sense of solidarity, creativity, and self-organization through consensus-based councils, shared kitchens, music, and rituals honoring the earth. They forged lasting connections between communities in Spain, France, Italy, and beyond, creating a transnational network of ecological and spiritual activists. The European Rainbow Gatherings embodied the movement's central ideal, that people of all nations can coexist peacefully, guided by love, simplicity, and a shared reverence for life. Roots of the Gatherings traces the origins of the Rainbow Gatherings to the convergence of the 1960s counterculture, peace activism, and the communal living experiments that followed. Born from the desire to create spaces free of hierarchy, money, and violence, the gatherings drew inspiration from Native American councils, music festivals like Woodstock, and the ideals of the early environmental and spiritual movements. They emerged as a living response to global crises, war, ecological destruction, and social alienation, offering instead a vision of cooperation, simplicity, and unity with nature. Blending prayer, art, and collective decision-making, the gatherings became both a celebration and a laboratory for a new way of being human. Their roots lie in the meeting of ancient tribal wisdom and modern utopian dreams, planting the seeds for a planetary community founded on peace, respect, and love for all living beings. The Gatherings Expand describes how the Rainbow Gatherings grew from small, idealistic meetings in North America into a worldwide movement spanning continents. As word spread through travelers, artists, and environmental activists, new gatherings appeared across Europe, Latin America, Asia, and beyond, each adapting to local cultures while preserving the core principles of peace, cooperation, and respect for the earth. These gatherings became global crossroads where people exchanged knowledge about sustainable living, permaculture, and spiritual practices, forming a living network of ecological and cultural renewal. Despite logistical challenges and occasional conflicts with authorities, the gatherings thrived through self-organization, consensus, and shared purpose. Their expansion marked a shift from countercultural experiment to planetary community, an embodiment of the rainbow prophecy that people of all colors and nations would unite to heal the earth and live in harmony as one human family. The making of pasta asciutta uses the simple act of communal cooking at a rainbow gathering to illustrate the spirit of cooperation and harmony that defines the movement. People from many nations, Italians, Germans, Chileans, Spaniards, and others, come together in makeshift outdoor kitchens to prepare food for hundreds, guided by shared joy rather than hierarchy or ownership. The process becomes both a practical task and a spiritual ritual, where generosity, creativity, and laughter replace competition and division. Cooking together transforms nourishment into an act of love and community, embodying the rainbow ideal that peace and unity can be built through everyday collaboration. The story of making pasta thus symbolizes the essence of the gatherings themselves, a celebration of diversity, simplicity, and the sacred beauty of working and living together in harmony with one another and the earth. The gatherings' magic captures the intangible, transformative energy that arises when thousands of people live together in peace and harmony, guided by shared intention rather than rules or leaders. It describes how the gatherings become living rituals, where music, dance, prayer, and silence merge into a collective heartbeat that transcends language and culture. This magic is the spontaneous creation of unity and love, born from the simple acts of sharing food, caring for the land, and honoring the sacredness of life. Participants experience a deep sense of belonging and awakening, as if the earth itself were remembering an ancient way of community. The gatherings' enchantment lies not in spectacle but in the rediscovery of what it means to be human, interconnected, creative, and capable of harmony beyond all divisions, a glimpse of the world the Rainbow Vision calls humanity to build. The Rainbow Alliance in European politics explores how the ideals of the Rainbow movement, peace, ecology, and social justice, began to influence political life across Europe in the 1980s. Emerging from grassroots activism, environmental networks, and the anti-nuclear and feminist movements, the Rainbow Alliance sought to unite diverse progressive forces under one banner of planetary responsibility and cooperation. It brought together Greens, human rights advocates, and spiritual visionaries who saw politics not as power struggle but as a path toward healing the relationship between humanity and nature. Though often fragmented and idealistic, the movement introduced ecological consciousness and participatory democracy into the political arena, laying the groundwork for later Green parties and transnational initiatives. The section portrays this alliance as an attempt to translate the spiritual and communal values of the rainbow into real-world governance, an early experiment in turning vision into action for a more just and sustainable world. The Rainbow Banks examines efforts to create alternative economic systems aligned with the ethical and ecological values of the rainbow movement. These initiatives sought to replace profit-driven banking with community-based models founded on trust, cooperation, and sustainability. The Rainbow Banks envision money not as a tool of exploitation but as a means to support ecological projects, cultural exchange, and social empowerment. Through small cooperative funds, microcredit programs, and solidarity networks, participants aim to finance green enterprises, renewable energy, and communal living experiments without dependence on traditional capitalist institutions. The section presents these projects as part of a broader reimagining of economics, transforming financial exchange into an act of shared responsibility and creative abundance, where wealth is measured not in accumulation but in the well-being of people and the planet. Toward the new millennium, the chapter reflects on the Rainbow Movement's evolution as it enters a new era of global awareness, bridging decades of activism, spirituality, and ecological vision into a unified planetary consciousness. It explores how the ideals born in the countercultural revolutions of the 1960s and 1970s matured into networks of eco-villages, permaculture projects, and grassroots movements for peace and sustainability around the world. Despite facing growing environmental and social crises, the movement's message remains one of hope, resilience, and creative transformation. The Rainbow Vision, of unity beyond borders, reverence for the earth, and collective awakening, becomes a call to action for humanity's next stage of evolution. The chapter closes with the sense that the new millennium is not merely a measure of time, but a threshold for consciousness, a moment to remember our shared origins and to build a global culture rooted in love, cooperation, and ecological harmony. The myth of the eternal return explores the cyclical nature of time and renewal as understood in ancient and indigenous traditions, contrasting it with the linear, progress-driven worldview of modern civilization. It suggests that humanity's spiritual evolution depends on rediscovering this sacred rhythm of return, recognizing that life, death, and rebirth are part of a continuous cosmic cycle. Through myths and rituals that honor the turning of seasons and the rebirth of the world, cultures once sustained harmony with nature and the divine. The Rainbow Movement, in this sense, represents a modern reawakening of that archetypal cycle, a collective remembrance that the future is born from returning to the source, to balance and unity with the earth. The eternal return thus becomes both a spiritual and ecological principle, an invitation to renew humanity's covenant with life through conscious participation in the ongoing dance of creation. The legend of the fifth sun recounts an ancient Mesoamerican prophecy describing humanity's passage through successive ages, each ending in destruction and renewal, with the present era, the fifth sun, symbolizing a time of transformation and awakening. Rooted in Aztec and Mayan cosmology, the legend foretells that this age will challenge humanity to restore harmony between spirit and matter, technology and nature, male and female energies. The Rainbow Movement embraces this prophecy as a metaphor for the global shift in consciousness now unfolding, a rebirth of the human spirit after cycles of imbalance and separation. The fifth sun represents not apocalypse but illumination, the dawn of a new world guided by unity, ecological awareness, and reverence for all life. In this vision, the rainbow tribes are the midwives of a planetary renewal, carrying the sacred fire of the fifth sun into a future of peace and balance with the earth. The Aquarian conspiracy discusses the emergence of a global shift in consciousness during the late 20th century, described as a quiet revolution of the mind and spirit rather than of politics or warfare. Inspired by Marilyn Ferguson's influential book of the same name, it portrays this movement as a network of thinkers, healers, artists, and activists who challenge materialism and separation by embracing holistic science, spirituality, and human potential. The conspiracy is not secretive but transformative, a wave of awakening that transcends ideology, uniting people across cultures in a shared vision of harmony, creativity, and planetary stewardship. It redefines progress as inner growth and cooperation, signaling the transition into the age of Aquarius, a time when knowledge, compassion, and ecological awareness replace domination and fear. The section presents this awakening as the intellectual and spiritual counterpart of the Rainbow Vision, a collective evolution toward unity and conscious participation in the unfolding of a new world. The city of Ram envisions a futuristic, ecologically balanced city that embodies the spiritual and practical ideals of the Rainbow Movement. Drawing on the symbolism of Ram, the sacred sound of creation and harmony, it describes a society where technology, art, and nature coexist in equilibrium. This city of Ram is not merely a physical place but a model of consciousness, where architecture follows organic principles, energy comes from renewable sources, and community life is guided by cooperation, creativity, and reverence for the earth. Education, health, and governance are rooted in holistic values rather than competition or exploitation. The city represents humanity's potential to rebuild civilization on sacred and sustainable foundations, an earthly reflection of the Ecotopian dream in which peace, beauty, and wisdom shape the rhythm of daily life. It stands as both prophecy and blueprint for the future, a living vision of harmony between spirit, society, and the planet. The New Age explores the widespread awakening of spiritual and ecological consciousness that emerged in the late 20th century as humanity entered a new phase of collective evolution. It describes how people around the world began seeking deeper meaning beyond materialism, embracing meditation, holistic healing, environmental stewardship, and the synthesis of ancient wisdom with modern science. The New Age represents not a religion but a transformation in awareness, where individuals recognize their interconnectedness with all life and their power to co-create reality through love and intention. Though often misunderstood or commercialized, its essence lies in the rediscovery of the sacred within everyday existence. This new paradigm aligns with the rainbow vision of unity and planetary healing, heralding a shift from domination to cooperation, from separation to oneness, a cultural and spiritual rebirth marking humanity's passage into the dawn of a more conscious and compassionate era. Ecotopia here and now emphasizes that the vision of a harmonious, sustainable world, once imagined as a distant utopia, is already beginning to take form through conscious communities, ecological innovations, and spiritual awakening. It highlights real-life examples of people living cooperatively, practicing permaculture, renewable energy use, and holistic education as expressions of an emerging global culture rooted in balance with nature. Rather than waiting for political systems to change, individuals and communities are embodying ecotopia in their daily lives, demonstrating that transformation starts from within and extends outward through shared action and awareness. This living experiment in sustainability and compassion fulfills the rainbow dream of unity between humanity and the earth. Ecotopia is thus revealed not as an idealized future but as a present reality unfolding wherever people choose to live simply, love deeply, and recognize the sacredness of all life. For All Our Relations concludes the book, Rainbow Nation Without Borders, with a heartfelt invocation of unity, gratitude, and reverence for the interconnected web of life. Drawing from indigenous wisdom, it affirms that every being, human, animal, plant, element, and spirit, is part of one living family bound by the same sacred breath. To live for all our relations means acting with compassion and responsibility toward the earth and all her creatures, honoring diversity as the expression of one universal spirit. The section calls for a renewal of the ancient covenant between humanity and nature, reminding readers that peace and ecological balance begin in the heart and radiate outward through conscious living. It is both prayer and promise, a dedication to serve life in all its forms and to nurture the planetary community envisioned by the Rainbow Nation, a world guided by love, respect, and harmony among all relations.